When my son told me my vote didn't count in the company I built, during a board meeting full of his investors, I didn't argue. I got into my car, went home, opened my safe, and by Columbus Day, I owned every share he thought was his. A true story from Denver, Colorado. Betrayal had to be punished. Justice had to be restored. My name is Richard. I'm 73, a retired construction founder who built half this city's skyline with my own hands. I never thought I'd have to fight to take back what I built. This is my story, a tale of family betrayal and noble revenge. Before we continue this story, make sure you subscribe to the channel and comment where you're watching from, with your morning coffee or late at night. It helps this story reach more people who love powerful revenge stories like this one. Let's begin. The boardroom smelled like polished wood and politics. Floor-to-ceiling windows looked out over downtown Denver, towers I'd poured framed, and raised back when men still shook hands to make deals. My son Daniel, ambitious, suited perfect hair, stood at the head of the table, flanked by his polished investors. To his right sat his wife Lauren, image-conscious, sharp as a nail gun. To his left, two venture capitalists I didn't trust, wearing smiles you could hang curtains on. I'd been silent through the first 20 minutes of this restructuring meeting. Silence isn't surrender. It's measuring tape. Daniel cleared his throat. Dad, this isn't personal. It's procedural. Then explain the procedure, I said. Calm, like thunder before it decides where to land. He looked at the papers in front of him and didn't see my eyes. We're reorganizing the ownership structure. The board voted to dilute legacy shares. It's just modernization. Legacy shares, I repeated. You mean mine? Lauren smiled that small rehearsed smile of corporate politeness. Richard, you'll still have a seat on the board. You just won't have a vote. It keeps decisions efficient. I looked at Daniel. You mean it keeps you unchallenged? Dad, he said, tone soft like pity. Your vote doesn't carry weight anymore. Times have changed. The room shifted. Investors looked down at their laptops. Someone coughed. I leaned forward slowly, resting both hands on the table I'd paid for. Son, I poured concrete for 30 years. I carried this company through 2 recessions and 3 foreclosures. My vote carries history. Daniel nodded, still not meeting my eyes. And that history is exactly what we're protecting. That's when I knew. This wasn't a restructuring. This was a coup. Polite. Papered, rehearsed, I stood, adjusted my jacket, and said only this. Then make sure you spell my name right on whatever document buries me. As I walked out, I heard an investor whisper, "It's the end of an era." He was right, just not the one he thought. The drive home felt shorter than usual. Funny how betrayal shrinks distance. The radio hummed through static about new infrastructure projects, ones I once would have bid on, before Daniel decided my generation was an antique. The skyline cut the horizon like a blade. I had helped build half of it. I knew which towers had weak foundations and which ones stood because I refused shortcuts. I also knew that empires like concrete crack when the mixture is wrong. In my driveway, I stared at the brick house Evelyn and I built 40 years ago, the same one Daniel grew up in, hammering toy nails into the porch rails. He'd forgotten what building costs when you're the one carrying the beam. I went inside. The air smelled faintly of sawdust and coffee, my kind of perfume. I poured a whiskey, sat at the kitchen table, and unfolded the board packet Daniel had mailed me earlier. The fine print was surgical, an amendment removing voting rights from founding class shares, effective immediately. It even thanked me for decades of contribution. I laughed once, short and sharp. I raised my glass toward the ceiling and whispered to the ghost of Evelyn, "They think Columbus discovered something new. He just took what others built." After sunset, I went downstairs to my office, not the one with the plaques, the real one lined with blueprints and dust. In the corner sat my safe, steel, heavy, and loyal. I turned the dial slow and steady. Old habits don't die. They wait. Inside were papers Daniel had forgotten existed, original share certificates, vendor agreements, and something even more valuable. The founder's clause I'd buried 20 years ago inside the bylaws, a clause that guaranteed reversion rights to any founding shareholder if the company's structure changed without unanimous approval. I'd written that clause myself when Daniel was still riding my shoulders at job sites, asking how cranes knew where to stop. The lawyers wanted to remove it. I didn't let them. I smiled for the first time that day. You took my vote, I whispered. You forgot who wrote the rules. I placed the folder on the desk and poured another whiskey. Outside, the city lights blinked like warning beacons. Inside, my plan started to take shape, one clause at a time. I called my attorney, Mr. Franklin. She's semi-retired, sharper than any of Daniel's fancy law school hires. He picked up on the second ring. Richard, he said, I was wondering when you'd call. How much time do I have? I asked. He chuckled. For revenge or for paperwork? Both, I said. The founder's clause stands. They never rescinded it, because you kept the master signature copy. You can trigger reversion, meaning, if they changed ownership without your consent, you can reclaim every Class A share tied to your founding certificate, quietly, before they notice. Can I still access the trust accounts? I asked. Your son signed you off as inactive, but he didn't touch the banking mandate. You're still primary on the founder's escrow, and if it exists. It exists, I said. I built it. Columbus Day weekend is coming, Franklin said. Offices slow, markets quiet. Move before they wake. Fitting, I said. He took land. I'll take my company. Richard and want justice, not blood. I built a business, not a grave, I said. I hung up, locked the office door, and pulled out a yellow legal pad. Across the top I wrote 3 words, the Columbus Day Takeback. The next morning Daniel showed up unannounced. Arrogance doesn't carry keys, it assumes doors open. He stepped inside, phone in hand, talking to someone about investors. His cologne arrived before his apology. Dad, he said, I wanted to clear the air. The air's already clear, I said. Just polluted. He smiled like a CEO. This is what's best for the company. You've earned your rest. Retirement is earned, I said. Exile isn't. He exhaled loudly. The sound of a man who wins with volume. You don't understand modern business. I built this business before you built your first excuse. He studied the skyline through my window. You made something incredible, he said. But it's mine now to evolve. You don't inherit greatness by renaming it, I said. You're old school, Dad. Investors want clean leadership. No sentimental relics. Relic, that was the word. He left after 10 minutes. The door closed softly. The words slammed louder than thunder. That afternoon I met my broker, Sandra, loyal, discreet, allergic to Daniel's kind of arrogance. A quiet office off 16th Street, haunted by the ghosts of real traders who still used paper. Richard Harrington, she said, smiling. You look like a man holding a loaded blueprint. I might be, I said. I handed her the founder's certificates and the clause. She read every line twice. You still hold 61% under dormant status, she said slowly. Daniel's investors are buying shares that revert to you the moment he changed the charter. How fast does the market feel it? I asked. By Columbus Day, she said. File a silent trigger before Friday. Do it, I said. Find out before or after. After, I said. Right after the holiday, she grinned. You're about to rewrite history with a pen. The weekend arrived like a storm that forgot to hide. Franklin filed the reversion order with the state registry. Sandra arranged the share reclamation notice. By law, Daniel couldn't block it until the next board cycle. All I had to do was wait. On Sunday night, I walked the house Evelyn painted, the porch Daniel once built for Father's Day before ambition replaced affection. Every nail had a memory. At my desk, I opened the safe again and placed a photo of Daniel at 15, hard hat too big, next to the clause he'd forgotten. Happy Columbus Day, son, I whispered. You found your ocean. Now I'll take back the ship. At 11:58 p.m., Sandra's message appeared. Transfer completed. All shares reverted. You are now the sole controlling shareholder. I smiled, not cruelly, just calmly. You took my vote, I said quietly. Now I own yours. The first battle was over. But taking back a company on paper is one thing. Walking back into the empire your own son tried to erase. That's another. Columbus Day dawned cold and clear over Denver. Air so sharp the skyline looked drawn with a ruler. I woke before sunrise, the way you do when daylight used to mean payroll. The phone blinked with one new message from Sandra. Share registry updated. You're officially the majority owner. Quiet trigger confirmed. I let the breath out slow. Revenge doesn't always look like joy. Sometimes it looks like a notarized page no one can argue with. Downstairs I brewed coffee and turned on the business crawl. Friday footage of Daniel rolled across the ticker, his voice polished. Our firm stands on innovation and modern leadership. I raised my cup to the screen. Innovation's about to meet its founder. At 7 sharp, I called Franklin. Is everything sealed? All sealed, he said. Your son doesn't even know yet. The reversion worked like a ghost in the system. Until he checks Monday feeds, he'll still think he's king. Let him sleep one more night in the palace, I said. Careful, Richard, Franklin warned. This is a family war, not just a board action. The family built this war, I answered. I'm just ending it. I closed the blinds against a proud son and folded the confirmation back into the safe. The house felt steady, like fresh shoring on a bowed wall. By the time he calls the lawyers, I told the quiet room, I'll already own the table he's sitting at. By 10 a.m., I was parked under the limestone letters, Harrington Structural Group, still standing because I chose stone over slogans. Inside, the receptionist straightened so fast her headset squeaked. Mr. Harrington, Senior, still the only one who poured this lobby, I said. Board meeting started? They didn't. You weren't. She swallowed. They didn't schedule you. I noticed, I said, and kept walking. The conference room door breathed open and conversation died mid-sentence. Daniel looked up from the head chair, collected, surprised, calculating. Arrogance recovers quickly. Dad, he said carefully, we weren't expecting you. I noticed, I said, setting my hat on the credenza. Good day to visit my property. A VC with too much hair product cleared his throat. This meeting is for shareholders only, Mr. Harrington. I set a thick folder in the center. Reversion documentation, notarized, sealed, stamped enough to hold a crane. Then you're looking at your largest one. Daniel reached for the folder. At that exact second, his phone detonated with notifications. The color left his face like concrete water draining from a form. 2 investors leaned in. What's going on? There's been a transfer, he said, jaw chewing glass. The system obeyed the man who wrote it, I said. I didn't just found this company, Daniel. I coded its bylaws into the foundation. Lauren whispered, oh my God, to a screen that stopped helping. I took my old chair at the end of the table. Proceed, I said. Let's see how democracy works when the builder still owns the hammer. By noon, the construction wire had it. Shareholder reversion filed. Founder Richard Harrington regains controlling interest via legacy clause activation. It moved through crews and coffee rooms faster than gossip at a church picnic. I stepped onto the sidewalk. Across the avenue, our cranes pivoted slow and sure, steel toes of giants that remember who teaches them to dance. Sandra called, laughter tucked inside professionalism. Public now. Stocks up 12. Obsolete yesterday, I said. Back in fashion today. Obsolete concrete still holds buildings together, she said. Phones clanged behind her like a parade of hammers. Franklin rang next. You've created panic. I didn't create it, I said. I revealed it. You'll need to address the press before Daniel spins. Let him talk first, I said. The higher he climbs, the louder the fall. 2 foremen in high-vis walked by and tipped their heads like flagmen, honoring a funeral procession in reverse. I nodded back and felt the city's temperature tilt a degree toward right. A gust bent the site fence banner and snapped it straight. Wind tests everything, I thought. Good frames don't mind. By afternoon, Daniel came through my front door without knocking, like father, like son, but the swagger had hairline cracks. He slapped the folder on my table. You blindsided me. No, I said. I reminded you. You stole my company. I reclaimed it, I answered evenly. The law calls that correction. He paced a tight strip of hardwood like it owed him an applause line. Do you have any idea what this does to my reputation? Yes, I said. It restores mine. You could have let it go, he snapped. But you had to make it a spectacle. You made the spectacle the moment you told a room my vote didn't count. He stopped. The set of his shoulders found the shape of a boy told to start over. What do you want from me? Respect, I said. And for you to learn what every apprentice knows. Titles don't make men. Work does. His face softened an inch, then hardened again. You think this makes you noble? I don't care about noble, I said. I care about plum. I slid the folder back. Read the reversion clause again, I said. It's signed by the same man who carried you through a half-finished lobby when you were 6. You said, someday I'll own this. I said, then learn to build it first. He didn't answer. The door clicked shut behind him like a level settling bubble center. By morning, the papers feasted. Founder reclaims company. A corporate. Columbus Day coup. Blood and concrete, the Harrington power. Struggle. PR firms love cologne words like transition. Denver loves truth that smells like. Diesel reporters swarmed. I answered one Elena, a local who once wrote about our first crane. Mr. Harrington, why now? Because builders don't watch roofs sag and call it progress, I said. And your son? He's still my son, I said. Sometimes you tear down a crooked wall before you rebuild the house. The quote ran before lunch and traveled farther than any beam I'd flown. Crews texted photos of the headline taped to break room fridges. Accountability looks good under magnets. That night Daniel texted, "You humiliated me." I replied, "No, son. You did that when you forgot whose name is on the first blueprint." Outside, the wind shoved leaves down the curb until they learned the corner. Inside, my house smelled like coffee and clean paper, and the quiet after an alarm stopped. I slid Elena's clipping into a manila folder labeled Rebuild, still empty, but not for long. 2 days later, I drove to the first tower I ever built. The glass was dated but honest, reflecting a city that keeps adding floors without asking where the footings are. I touched the granite corner. It hummed back the way old work hums when it knows your name. In the window, I caught the older version of me, slower, steadier, not interested in speed so much as truth. A laborer came up with a coil of line on his shoulder. "Mr. Harrington? You really took it back?" "I didn't take it back," I said. "I stopped giving it away," he grinned. "Hell of a move." "Not hell," I said. "Just history." The reflection winked. A dusty younger me with a hammer. I could almost hear Evelyn's laugh under a hard hat, 2 sizes big. I went back to the truck and looked at the city, the way a foreman looks at a list. What's wrong, what holds, what's next? I called Franklin. "We've taken the company," I said. "Now it's time to rebuild the family." Silence. Paper rustled on his end. "Are you sure?" "Revenge builds satisfaction," I said. "But what comes after takes more than anger." He's got to learn the cost of concrete before we talk about what comes next. The engine ticked as it cooled. The skyline breathed like a big animal deciding to lie down. I shifted into gear. "Next step," I told the dash, truth with a timestamp. I thought reclaiming the company would be the hardest part. I was wrong. What came next would test more than signatures. It would test character. Morning cracked open like a beam under torque. Sandra called before I finished my coffee. "Richard, you should see the books." "And I've seen them," I said. "Not these," she answered. "I ran a compliance review. Your son's been moving company funds through an operations consultancy. His name off paper, Lauren's name on. Private transfers, marketing lines, personal accounts." I let the silence count to 5. "How much?" "About 600,000 over 2 years. Subtle but sloppy. A pattern you can draw with a straight edge. Document everything," I said. "Chain of custody. Screenshots, logs, the vendor file, beneficiary linkages. Send it to the board. No press, no speeches. Just facts." She hesitated. "He'll panic." "I'm counting on it," I said. "We took the company back. Now we rebuild the family. With truth first." I set a fresh tab in the binder. Audit. Exhibits. Truth weighs more than rumor when you stack it right. By noon, Daniel's emails frayed like bad strap steel. At 2 p.m., Franklin called. "He knows you have the audit." "Let him sweat," I said. "He's calling emergency board meetings. 2 investors are hedging. One's out. Loyalty built on profit isn't loyalty," I said. "That's a lease." At 3:15, Lauren called me herself. "Richard, please, don't destroy him." "Destroy?" I asked. "He did that himself." "I'm repairing the name. You're making it public." "No," I said. "The work is public. The truth is private until someone forces it outside. If this gets out, we'll lose everything. Then you'll learn what everything means." I ended the call. Clouds rolled in over the Front Range. Denver does stern sky better than any city I know. At 4:40 p.m., Franklin again clipped. "Heads up. Daniel's lawyers filed an ex parte TRO to stay the reversion. They're hinting at elder exploitation and procedural defects." There it was, at the near failure. They were going to paint me confused and freeze my pen. "Can they win?" I asked. "They can stall if a night judge buys urgency. We counter fast. I need your physician's capacity letter, escrow mandate history, and the original signature book, tonight." "Done," I said. I opened the safe. The leather binder still smelled like a job site at noon. ink, dust, purpose. I scanned, signed, time-stamped. Sandra dispatched a courier. Nora, my neighbor with a reporter's patience and a nurse's timing, drove me to Franklin's office. Patience isn't slow. Patience is prepared. At 8:03 p.m., the court dialed in. The judge's voice was gravel and calendar pages. Counsel, I see a late hour and a family company. Respondent? Franklin didn't waste verbs. Your Honor, the Founder's Clause is facially valid. Petitioner altered governance without unanimous consent. Exhibits AG capacity certification, mandate history master signature book. Deny the stay or set immediate dissolution at first light. Opposing counsel tried varnish and volume. The judge interrupted twice. At 8:29 p.m., the ruling landed like a bolt seating home. TRO denied without prejudice. Status at 9:30 a.m. parties preserve. I looked at Franklin. He nodded once. That's how bridges answer storms. Outside rain needled the glass. Let it wash, I said. Truth always comes cleaner out of a storm. 2 days later, at 9 a.m. sharp, a special meeting. Daniel looked a decade older. Investors studied him like witnesses who knew the bailiff by name. I sat in the same chair where he'd told me my vote didn't count. Hands flat on the table. Steady the surface, then speak. He cleared his throat. Before we begin, I'd like to clarify— No need, I said. Sandra entered, exact as a survey line with 3 binders. Audit findings, she said. Source docs, ledger trails, vendor registry. Tabs A through M. Daniel's jaw twitched. This isn't necessary. It's essential, I said. Transparency is how roofs stop sagging. Sandra turned to the last tab. Unauthorized transfers, misclassified expenses and bonuses routed through a consulting entity managed by Mrs. Lauren Harrington. Gasps. An investor muttered, Good God. Daniel's voice broke. Dad, please, don't call me that here, I said. Call me what you called me last month, irrelevant shareholder. He lowered his eyes. Hands shook. The binders didn't. I stood and straightened my tie. Meeting adjourned. Founder's review begins. Daniel, your resignation will read cleaner than the audit. That evening, the Denver Chronicle ran it above the fold. I didn't feed it. Truth leaks when it can't breathe. Founder reclaims company amid audit scandal. Son's private firm flagged for misuse. Phones lit up. Crews texted me screenshots from lunchrooms and man lifts. My name trended for the first time since a ribbon cutting I skipped to fix a pump, Franklin called. His lawyer is begging for leniency. I let the quiet sit. Faye wanted to modernize everything, I said. Now he learns how fast reputations depreciate. What about Lauren? She built the house of cards, I said. He just blew on it. In my office, the city shimmered through the rain like a job site under tower lights, beautiful and unforgiving. I studied Evelyn's photo on the shelf. You'd say I went too far, I whispered. And that he needed it. Thunder rolled low. Inside, revenge finally felt finished. Peace hadn't arrived yet. It was late, but I could feel its footsteps getting closer. 2 nights later, headlights combed my yard. Daniel stood on the porch without an umbrella. No cologne, no entourage, no script. Rain had rinsed him down to human. I opened the door and waited. I signed the resignation, he said. I know. Sandra called. You didn't have to humiliate me. No, I said quietly. You did that when you forgot who gave you your name. He blinked hard. Didn't try to hide it. I didn't mean to take it from you. You didn't take it, I said. You abandoned it. He stared at the threshold like a man measuring rise and run. I lost myself, didn't I? You lost your foundation, I said. Nothing stands long without one. Can I fix it? Not yet, I said. Start where every apprentice starts. With your conscience, he nodded once, hungry, tired, teachable. I handed him a towel. Dry off, then sit. You're still my son, not my partner. We sat by the fire in a silence that didn't accuse. Flames do good work on pride. What happens to the company now? He asked. I'm restoring it, I said. Honesty, work, backbone. And me? You'll stay out, I said, until you can walk into that building as the man I raised, not the one who tried to replace me. He breathed, deep and shaky. What should I do? Find your humility, I said. It's the only tool business school forgot to issue. He almost smiled. I miss working beside you. I miss that too, I said. Respect first. Then rebuilding, he nodded. Let me earn it. We shook hands. Not like partners closing a deal, but like father and son reopening a door from opposite sides of pride. On the stoop, he turned. "Happy Columbus Day, Dad. You finally discovered something worth keeping," I said. He left. The rain had stopped. The yard smelled like clean concrete in spring. I walked to my desk, opened the folder with his resignation, and set it beside the founder's clause. One chapter ends. The next needs better math. I looked at Evelyn's photograph. "He's learning to build again," I whispered. The clock ticked like hammers settling into rhythm. Revenge had done its work. Now came the harder part, rebuilding what betrayal had broken. Let me pause for a moment. If you've stayed with me this far, you feel this betrayal the way I do. Tell me in the comments, would you forgive or would you fight back? And while you're here, like, subscribe, and share this story with someone who's felt the same kind of pain, because what comes next will change everything. Tuesday arrived without headlines. The storm had spent itself. Denver wore a calm sky, cranes scratching it like pencils on blueprint paper. I brewed coffee and watched the street below, workers heading to job sites I once commanded. No call from Franklin, no email from Sandra, no emergency from the board. Just silence, heavy and clean. 2 messages waited on my phone. One from Sandra, resignation accepted. Market steady, cruiser relieved. The second from Daniel. "May I come by today?" I typed back. "After lunch." I walked the hallway lined with photos. Evelyn in a hard hat, me holding the keys to our first office. Daniel at 15 beneath a helmet too big for him. In every photo you could see who carried the weight. At the kitchen table, I laid out 2 folders. One read reversion, finished business. The other was blank. I wrote across its cover, "The blueprint of honor, 2 mugs of coffee." One for me, one for the son I hadn't decided to let back in. The doorbell rang at 1:01 p.m. Daniel on time for the first time in years. He stepped inside without swagger, only weather. His hands were empty. No lawyer, no folder, no script. Just skin and shame. "Thanks for seeing me," he said. "You're not a board member today," I said. "You're my son." "That door is always open." He sat with his palms flat on the table, like a man who'd finally learned tools before talking. "I've accepted the audit findings. I'll repay every dollar." "You'll repay what can be counted," I said. "The rest will need better math." His voice cracked slightly. "What do you need from me?" I slid the blank folder toward him. Not punishment. A blueprint. "We're going to write the blueprint of honor. Not legal. Moral. If you can live by it, you'll earn your way back. If you can't, this house will still love you, but the company won't." He stared at the empty pages. "What goes in it?" "You tell me," I said. "Say it plain enough that a foreman could nail it to a wall." He wrote in slow, deliberate lines. "Restitution. Repay misused funds with interest. Public apology to employees. Transparency. No hidden contracts or shell entities. Quarterly reviews with founder oversight. Humility. 90 days on site in boots, rotating crews, no title, no office. Stewardship. Client first decisions. No growth that compromises safety or craft. Family. Honor the founder's vote in perpetuity." When he finished, he slid the pen toward me. "Add what I missed." I drew one last line. "Respect, not demanded. Re-earned daily." He nodded slowly. "That's the one." We both signed the bottom. This was no corporate document. This was the covenant between a father's legacy and a son's second chance. I stamped the folder with a handshake that lasted a second longer than pride. The next morning, we stood at Yard 3, where backhoes slept like old dinosaurs and steel smelled like rain. Luis, steady as ever, saw us and grinned. "Well, I'll be." "The kid's in boots." Kid almost made Daniel smile. "He's yours," I said. "Treat him like he lied to you and is trying to make it right." Luis slapped a pair of gloves into Daniel's chest. "Rule 1, gloves on, mouth off." "Earn the talking," Daniel nodded. He followed Luis into the yard, like a man entering a language he used to speak. By noon he was muddy to the knees, hauling forms, coiling lines, getting corrected without flinching. Twice he did something wrong and Luis barked. The old Daniel would have argued. This one just fixed it. A trucker slowed as he passed the gate. "That's your boy?" "Yes," I said. "He's learning." "About time," I replied. When the shift ended, Daniel's hands were raw. He didn't ask for praise. He asked for tape. The following Monday, we gathered the whole company in the fabrication bay, crews leaning on sawhorses, apprentices perched on pallets, managers standing back with arms folded. I stepped up on a crate. You all know what happened. You know I took the company back. What matters now is whether this roof holds when the next storm hits. Daniel climbed up beside me. His voice was smaller than a microphone, but bigger than his pride. I made decisions that betrayed the people who built my name, he said. I hid money because I was afraid of being ordinary. I forgot that our work is never ordinary. Silence. Not approval. Not anger. Just silence. I'll work 90 days on site. No title. I'll pay back every dollar with interest. Quarterly transparency. No more side deals. If I break any of it, I leave. He looked at me. I didn't nod. I didn't rescue him. I'm sorry, he finished. Somewhere in the back, a wrench clanged against concrete, the sound of tension releasing. Luis spoke first. Prove it, Daniel nodded. Yes, sir. A young welder wiped his eye. Guess the kid's gonna sweat for it. 2 weeks later, I visited a mid-rise site on Spear Boulevard. The wind snapped the caution tape like a whip. Daniel was at the rebar table with Maya, the young engineer he once dismissed. Now he was listening. We can shave a day if we stage here, she said, but it'll overwork the crane crew unless we offset the schedule. Then we don't shave the day, Daniel replied. We keep the crew honest. She studied him, suspicious of the humility. But it held. Copy that, she said, softer now. Light on pins. Luis yelled from below. Daniel jogged to fetch a crate, shoulders moving in rhythm with the job. Across the deck, he caught my eye. He didn't wave. Good. Work doesn't wave. Your boy's different, a safety officer said beside me. Maybe he's finally heavy enough to stand where the foundation is. I said. I took a photo of the crew, boots, gloves. Skyline, regret turning into skill. 30 days into the blueprint of honor. We called a board meeting. This time not to fight, but to build. Sandra presented a leaner strategy. Franklin read the governance safeguards. Then I stood and read aloud a new clause. The founder's vote shall exist not to rule but to protect safety, integrity, and the dignity of the craft. I handed the document to Daniel. Read the final paragraph. He took a breath. In the event of conflict, the founder's vote will be exercised only after consultation with 2 foremen and 1 apprentice. An investor frowned. Why give him that path back? Because punishment ends where the lesson begins, I said. The plan passed. The clause passed. The company, for the first time in years, felt whole. Elena from the paper stopped me in the hallway. Quote for the record. Builders don't chase peace, I said. We build where it can live. And sometimes what we build isn't spoken as it's shown. On a clear Friday, we topped out a new mid-rise near Union Station. A small evergreen was strapped to the last beam, the way we always did. Crews gathered laughing, drinking coffee too sweet for their own good. I stood with Luis, Maya, and Daniel. Gloved, quiet, no arrogance left. We raised the final beam slowly. It kissed home with a clang that felt like absolution. Tradition says the builder speaks at topping out. But this time, I said, the builder should listen. Daniel stepped forward. I wanted this to be about my name once, he said. Now I want it to be about our work, the kind that holds when no one's watching. He looked at me. I can't ask you to forget, but can I ask for the chance to keep proving I remember? I let the silence live. Then I said the only word that mattered. Yes, a cheer rose, not loud but deep. The sound of forgiveness finally having somewhere to stand. I handed Daniel a small envelope. Inside, a key card. This isn't control, I said. It's trust. To the field office, not the corner one. He laughed once, broken but real. Thank you. Later, alone in my office, I placed 3 things in the Blueprint of Honor folder. The signed agreement, a photo from the topping out, and a note Evelyn once tucked into my lunchbox. Build strong. Come home kinder. They said my vote didn't count, I whispered. Today it counted for mercy. Justice had spoken. Forgiveness stayed. And dignity, the first tool I ever owned, had the last word. At the end, tell me how this story made you feel, and share your thoughts in the comments below. If you haven't already, please subscribe, like, and join the conversation. I read every single comment. Thank you for listening.